Today, we're diving into a huge shift in how money moves around the planet. It's a story that involves mountains of copper, clashing ideas about finance, and literally billions of dollars that are redrawing the map of global power. Let's get right into it.
It all kind of starts with this one simple, almost unbelievable sentence. In 2007, a Chinese company bought a mountain. Yeah, you heard that right.
And we're not talking about just any mountain. This was Mount Toromocho in Peru, sitting way up at 15,000 feet. And it wasn't just rock and dirt. It was basically a treasure chest holding 2 billion tons of copper. This one deal tells you everything you need to know about China's massive appetite for the resources it needs to keep its incredible growth story going. But of course, this wasn't just about one mountain in Peru. It's part of a much bigger global strategy. So you have to ask, what's really driving this global shopping spree? And more importantly, how is it completely different from the kind of foreign aid we've all grown up hearing about?
Okay, so it really boils down to two competing models of money, and they start with completely different goals in mind.
Think about it like this. On one hand, you have traditional foreign aid, the kind from Western countries and groups like the World Bank. Its main goal, by definition, is to help the recipient country, to boost their economy, improve welfare, and reduce poverty in the long run. China's model? Well, it's primarily about fueling its own economic engine. It's driven by the need to get resources and make strategic investments for China's benefit. And this is where you can see that strategy in action. It's so tangible. They don't just write a check and walk away, they build. They're financing and literally constructing the ports, the railways, the roads that are needed to get those raw materials from deep inside a country, out of the country, and all the way back to China.
And when you look closely, you see this very clear pattern. The focus is on critical infrastructure, energy, transportation, you name it. And they often use these things called resource-backed loans. It's a model sometimes called the Angola mode. It basically means a country might pay back a loan for, say, a brand new dam, not with cash, but with a guaranteed supply of something like oil for the next 20 years. It's a super direct, you get this, I get that kind of deal.
And that brings us to the second major difference. And honestly, this is where the two philosophies really, truly clash. It's all about the strings attached, or, in one case, the strings that are not attached. I mean, the contrast here is just night and day. The Western model, for decades, has been all about demanding reform. A loan from the IMF or aid from the US often comes with a big list of conditions. You have to change your governance, you have to strengthen the rule of law, you need to make these specific economic changes. China's model is the complete opposite. It's built on a now famous no political conditions attached policy, a strict hands-off principle of non-interference.
And you can probably guess why this is so attractive to some countries. I mean, put yourself in their shoes. If you're a leader who's tired of what feels like a lecture from the West with endless demands for internal reforms, China's pragmatic, results-first approach can feel like a partnership between equals. It's less, we know what's best for you, and more, let's get this done.
But of course, neither model gets a free pass. Both face some pretty serious criticism. Traditional aid gets accused of creating what's called a moral hazard, the idea that governments start answering to foreign donors instead of their own people. But on the flip side, China's model is criticized for its enabling effect, that by not demanding reforms, it might be propping up corrupt or authoritarian regimes, letting them off the hook. This brings us to probably the most controversial, most heated accusation leveled against China's model, the idea of debt trap diplomacy. You've definitely heard this term before. It's the theory that China is deliberately drowning countries in loans it knows they can't repay. Also, it can swoop in and seize strategic assets like ports or mines when they default. The idea is pretty sinister, right? But is that what's actually happening? Let's start with just one number. Let it sink in for a second. 12%. So what is that? That's the slice of Africa's total external public debt that's owed to Chinese lenders. Now, 12% is a lot of money, no question. But given the way this story is usually told, is that number smaller than you thought it would be? For many people, it is. In fact, when you look at the whole pie of who holds Africa's external debt, the picture gets way more complicated. That biggest slice, it isn't China. It's actually private Western holders. We're talking big banks, asset managers, and traders. After that, you've got the multilateral lenders like the World Bank and IMF. China is a big piece, but it's not the biggest piece. So let's be clear. There are very real problems with some of these Chinese loans. A lack of transparency is a big one. But this specific narrative of an intentional grand debt trap scheme, well, most serious academic studies just don't find the hard evidence to support it. The reality is, well, it's just a lot messier than that.
So what does all this mean? It means the old rulebook for global finance has basically been tossed out the window. We're on a completely new playing field. So let's just boil it all down one more time. You've got two models with totally different goals. One is focused on welfare, the other is focused on resources. They play by different rules. One demands reform, the other says no strings attached. And that big, scary narrative you hear all the time, it often masks a much more complex reality. And this leaves us with one final, really powerful question. For decades, if you were a developing nation and you needed capital, there was basically only one game in town. But now there's a choice. Now they can weigh the pros and cons of two very different deals from two very different global powers. And that competition, that creates leverage. So it makes you wonder, in this brand new world of global finance, who really holds the power?